What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings Podcast studio. Today, I am very excited to be joined by Mr. Khoi Pham. How you doing today, Khoi?
Oh, I'm doing good, James. How's everybody doing? Excited to be on your
Oh
show.
man, I think we're doing good. We got everything fired up and running. We're cooking. We're ready to rock and roll. I wanted to hit you right out the gate with talking a little bit about Nerdcrawler because you've been posting some incredible pieces on there up for sale and really have developed this style that I've never seen from you before. Like I've seen glimpses of it, but the stuff you're doing on the toned paper and everything, it really looks like you're having a great time putting those pieces
Yeah,
together.
thanks, James. I appreciate it. Yeah, Nerdcrawler for people who don't know, it's I don't get paid by them. I just use it and a fan of it. But it's an auction site, right? And just
Yep.
I don't use auction sites, so I don't know how to compare them to other ones, eBay, the big one, and the other ones. But I know
Right.
Chris Tung runs the Nerdcrawler. It's a one
Yeah, I
person operation.
actually had Chris on here back on episode 9.
Oh,
So
okay.
so the audience is somewhat familiar with Nerdcrawler from what he
No, there you
shared
go.
on
There you go.
there.
So you know,
Chris is a cool
yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah. So I was going to say that. Yeah, you guys should know. You guys would know that he is a cool guy. So I jumped on there, and I've been using it kind of as a way to sort of because you know what they say about artists, right? When I'm not working, what do? I draw, right? Can't help
Yeah,
myself. So I figured if I'm doing this stuff and I'm already sharing it on Facebook and Instagram and all the socials, and people are asking, how do I get that? You know what? Let's make it official, and it's sort of like an accountability thing where it helps me interact with people, but also it's a good place to test out to grow, right?
right.
And unlike commissions where the people tell me like this is what I want for this sort of stuff, I draw what I want, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be full figure, it doesn't have to be this or that. Like I draw whatever I want, which is really
Little
allowing
more
me to
creative freedom
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. So to me, all this stuff is just forms of expression. It's cliche, I know, but but like, how do I
Yeah,
communicate me through the work? And it's been fun, sort of like stretching that out and testing out how I reach people and how they interpret
definitely.
what I'm putting out there. But yeah, I appreciate that you
Yeah,
like
and
it. It's
you've been
fun.
in the Oh yeah, it's amazing. You've been in the industry for quite some time now. Like when did you very first break in? Like I kind of know a lot of the answers to the questions that I ask, when I do
Yeah.
this cuz I've been following you like since the very beginning when you first got in, and I still have a convention sketch I had you do for me of the Hulk like many, many years ago. Like I don't even remember when it was. It was like I believe it was at Emerald City Comic Con one year here in the Seattle area, and I know it's at least probably over 10 or 15
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
ago that I got that from you. Like when did you break in? When did you have that big break getting in? Was it with Marvel that you had your first
Yeah.
professional
So I
work?
think if I were to date this stuff, I think my first convention as an aspiring comic book creator was 2003, and that was
Okay.
Wizard Philadelphia back in the day. And some of my friends, at the local comic shop back then, I walked in and I saw them hovered in the back doing comic stuff. They were, what the hell are you guys doing? And they're like,
Yeah.
we're doing a comic book, and we're going to go to Wizard Philly Comic Convention. And back then, I've read comics growing up, but I really wasn't up to speed in like the whole community, right? So I
Yeah.
read it, I doodled it, and I was like, wait a minute, like the only convention I knew was San Diego. So it just blew my mind that
The big
other
one. Yeah.
conventions existed, right? Right. So it's like, this is nuts. So I got a table, started, showed up, did a bunch of sketches, and Marvel, right? Marvel was doing a portfolio review. So I brought my stuff over, met a bunch of people there at the show, started with them 10 Ton Studios, which is like so it was a bunch of people who were already going to shows, and we were already talking online. So we figured let's make it more formal and deliberate. When we go to shows, let's get a table, get a banner. So
Yeah.
we it's when you go to these things, James. I don't know how your experience is, but especially if you're an aspiring creator or just going anywhere by yourself, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
tell.
So
You can tell. You see a lot of these guys sitting there, guys and gals sitting at these little booths by
yeah,
themselves. And, and I find a lot of artists, I think this is true of a lot of artists, like sometimes can be a little more reclusive. So if you're sitting there at your little table and you don't have people around you kind of bringing things out of you, I could see it being more
yeah,
difficult for a lot of people to
and
do
even
that.
and even and maybe even especially after outside the show hours, right? And you're going to the
Right.
where the people are hanging out. You're just walking by yourself. It can be a little intimidating, more intimidating there, I think, because you're now among
Yeah.
other or the professionals that you want to soon be a part of. You're among them
Yeah.
now, and so it's not like it's a different dynamic. So we figured that if we just came as 10 Ton, we would at least have each other, right? So we could walk
Yeah.
around, and we noticed that you know when we had each other, we were now the group that people wanted to be a part of, right? So my advice to a
That's
lot of people
cool.
is, if you go to
Yeah.
conventions, roll with some friends, especially ones who are similarly minded and ambitious, and really have a plan for breaking in. But of that
Yeah.
group, it was just like really felt random. But of that 10 Ton group, right? It was like Riley Brown, Chris Burnham, Nick Pitara, Aaron Cooter. There's like it was just nuts. It's just none of us had done anything.
Yeah.
So out of this group, we weren't even really a studio. Right? We didn't publish anything, but it was just but that was fun. So that was the start of getting the comic bug. Right? I was
Yeah.
actually went to law school, went to business school, so I didn't get any art training. So to me, that back then, that
Oh,
was like,
wow. Okay.
this is just cool. This is just fun. All right, selling sketches, pay for my
Yeah.
table. That
Yeah.
was fun. So but then when I actually went, it was like, what, let's make this, let's give it a real go. Let's see how this can happen. So
So I'm guessing you probably didn't really like have a formal portfolio or anything at that time to show to editors or anything like that. You were just kind of flying by the seat of your pants a little bit.
well, so here's the thing, right? The guys at the comic shop, and I use it gender neutral, guys and gals, right? But
Right.
the show wasn't like for another 6 months or something, so I had time to
Okay.
prepare.
So you did prep a
I
little
did.
bit.
So what happened was, because I didn't go to art school, I was a little self conscious, right? So for like the first huge chunk of those months, just research, right? Like I bought books,
Right.
just went to the comic store, bought comics I thought that were popular, and whose styles that really resonated with me. How I approached it isn't exactly how I would advise someone to do it now, but back
Right.
then it was more like, who did I like, and just sort of assimilate how I do things to match that. I would not advise that, but for somehow it
And
works for
you're
me.
and you were doing that without, like you said, pretty much no formal art training at that time. Like, had you been somebody who was creative and into kind of like doodling and that type of thing prior to that, or were you
I
just going
was,
into it pretty
I was, and
fresh?
I was, and this is just trying to be frank. I think the lack of training shows when I look at it now, and just the whole approach of it was a little bit off. And I honestly think, in addition to doing the drawings and stuff, and the actual work, I do mentoring too. And
Right. I
so,
saw that on your title for your Instagram, which is definitely something I'm going to be asking you to delve in a little deeper
yeah,
here
well, you're well on your
as we
way.
get
Yeah,
into it.
because one of the things I looked at from my experience and what I see in terms of cross disciplines is, I suspect the big reason that it wasn't coincidence that all of us from 10 Ton got in, because our styles were so different. I think what really got us in um, was the connections. We were just chill, right? We went to these
Yeah.
conventions. We weren't overly earnest. We weren't, we were just making friends with people, right? We were just getting
Yeah.
to know everybody. So I honestly think for anything that you want to do, whether you want to get in or stay in, which is kind of what the importance of what I try to preach or talk about these days is like, it's tricky enough to get in, but how do you stay in, right? How do you maintain
Yeah.
that consistency, and how do you keep delivering? And a lot of it does come down to like what we're
Especially,
doing, James, right? Connections,
yeah.
again, really getting to know and respecting people, right? Not like, hey,
Yeah.
how can I use you to my benefit? No, that's not going to work, right? You can sniff that out a mile
Yeah.
away.
And social media has given so many more tools for artists to connect and to display their work and to get mentoring and all of these types of things too, which is very different than back in the day. The experience that artists had back in the day of getting their work seen was you did have to go to a convention or you had to mail stuff off to an editor, based on samples they gave you or
Yeah,
whatever. Um, so yeah, there's definitely more tools, I think, to make those type of connections that you're talking
yeah,
about.
and it's really it's such an interesting like life, right? So get really philosophical, right? But the space you're in is the space you're in. So however it was back then, in terms of like the ability to connect, right? It sort of translates into the sophistication of the art almost, right? But now with
Yeah,
the internet and even greater ability to connect, I swear, every time I go to the comic store and I open a book, the art is amazing, right? It is. It's like
yep.
with computer drawn on the computer. Was there a term for that? Because now digital art kind of has, well, I guess digital art,
Just
right?
yeah, digital.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
can do amazing things. I do most of my interior stuff digital, but you go to the stores like this is nuts. Like the level of sophistication. It's like how does anybody get anything done with this, right?
yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
just interesting to just observe in terms of like what the industry is like, and what
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just like how do people relate? How do people relate, even from freelancer to the person they're working for, from a reader to collectors. Like it's just a weird, constantly evolving space, and
yeah.
you can't.
Very different dynamic.
Right. So the reason I wouldn't advise about like, hey, just copy and assimilate your favorites is you're going to always be behind, right?
Yeah,
You're hearing the conversation after it's already happened, right?
exactly. Yeah,
So you're having the conversation like it's fine. Like the echoes of the conversation can still get you places, but it's you're
correct.
spending a lot of energy just chasing around, whispers and echoes versus
Yeah.
actually getting out there and meeting people firsthand.
Now going back to this first con with your 10-ton group and everything and all this stuff, like, um, did you find that you got some good feedback when you submitted that portfolio? Because I know you said that you weren't looking back, you're like, it wasn't all that great, but you were doing the best with what you could find, what you could research as far as how to present that and everything. Did you get a chance to present it to some
I did.
editors and some people there at the
I
con?
did.
How
I
was
did.
that?
So I remember vividly it was Marvel, and it was Stephanie Moore and CB Cebulski, who is now editor in chief at Marvel, but
Nice.
back then he
Yeah,
was a
yeah, he
talent
is.
coordinator. So I did get their attention, and again, you just try to learn, right? Like just have an open mind about things, right? So I went and I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time on these pages. Um, they're very diligent, right? Like back when I had more time. So and my
Yeah.
takeaway was so Stephanie Moore, who's great, she was looking at this stuff and she's pointing stuff out, and everything she was pointing out, I was thinking, yeah, I knew that. Like I knew I could have done that better, right? And
Right.
then so that was one of the takeaways. Was like, listen to anybody who's listening to the show, and when I talk to people and do portfolio reviews for them, because I'm not going to get you work, but hopefully I can help you avoid the mistakes I made.
Yeah.
It worked
Yeah.
out for me, but like again, there's a lot of things come into play. But I recognize that if I'm going to show somebody something, I have to critique it first, right? and I'm not on
Yeah.
a deadline when I'm submitting. I can critique it, and I can make sure I'm not wasting my time and the other person's, because they're really genuinely trying to help. Like, hey, you know what? This is where you could do a little work, and that's like time being taken away from advice I didn't need, right? If I already knew.
Right.
So that was interesting. One of the things that jumps out is she said, you could work on the faces that you draw, which is kind of interesting, right? Because it didn't occur to me, because I think as artists, you can relate, I'm sure. We start out with drawing
Mhm.
faces, and we always get the, oh, you're such a great artist, the face looks great. So you
Yeah.
sort of just kind of like rest on your laurels a bit and not really work on that part of
Mhm.
the drawing. So it was educational. But again, I had no, I did not think I was going to get in. I mean, I kind of did, but it was going to be like, it would be
Yeah.
fun if I did, but whatever.
You didn't really have any, like, preconceived notion of what that experience was gonna
Right.
be, or what you were gonna get out of it at that
Right,
time.
right. But I do think it was the constant 10-ton online presence, the constant convention presence, right? That really um helped. This is
Yeah.
simply me speculating based on how I feel with people around me, right? And it reminds me of like
Yeah.
I read a Chris Matthews graduation speech from somewhere, right? And the point of his speech was, it's like, if you play pickup basketball, you go to the court, and it's always packed, right? But you go every day. You just
Mhm.
go. You don't get to play. You go home. Next day, you keep coming. You go every day. And then one day, one of the regulars doesn't show up, right? And they're like, "You're always here. You want to play? That's
Yeah.
it, right?" That's kind of how. And I think
Yep.
Woody Allen has something similar to that. But and I could totally be butchering what I'm saying. It may not even be Chris Matthews. I don't know, but
Yeah.
whatever, that stuck with
When
me in
I
terms of, you know what, you got to keep going. You got to go, 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 and don't expect it to be there for you when you want it. You just have to. You have to be there for it, right?
Yeah. I think Todd had a similar, Todd McFarlane had a similar thing with all his letters and
Yes.
his rejection
Yeah.
letters, and just like, like being in the back of their brain, like, man, when is this guy going to stop? Or having them, having you be in their head when something does come up, where it's like, oh, somebody's off this book. We need somebody to fill in. Well, this kid keeps sending all these things and he can draw okay. So let's give him a shot
Yeah.
on this book that's not that, popular or
Yeah.
whatever.
But it's like everybody has their own, origin story. But the one I
Yeah.
think that I think is most transferable is meeting as many people as possible. And I think a big part of that is working on, when we draw, when we tell comics, right? It's we're telling a story, we're sending a message out there, and I think part of it, you would do yourself a service and make things easier if you got better at connecting with people, right?
Right.
So I
Yep.
do find, when I look at successful, I don't even know what that means, but whatever your sense of successful is, um, those people they're really good at connecting with their audience, right? And I'm
Yeah.
not even talking about the art itself. Just when you see them in person, it's like, wow, that you're really nice, or you're really engaging. You're very, you are who I would have expected you to be based on what
Yeah.
the art that I see, right? So there's a lot of
Yeah.
beyond the art that goes into, I guess, making money as an artist, making money as anything, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This definitely makes a lot of sense. So, when you first broke in, what was that like? Like, did you expect it? Was it out of left field? Like, everybody has a different story when they get that first big break. So, what was your first big break with Marvel?
Um, so when I did that portfolio review, I think they did take my name down, right? They, meaning CB and
Nice.
Stephanie, and because I was active, again, I'm just trying to, Batman at Sherlock Holmes it from the outside
Yeah.
perspective. I think because I just never went away, but I didn't harass people, right? It was just like I was always at conventions. I was, I'd always draw on people's sketchbooks. So I would just do commissions, right? Just constantly have my work out there so that whoever wants to hire me can passively gain access to it, right?
Yeah.
So they knew if they wanted to see any of my art, they could go to 1010studios.com. It's not there anymore, but they knew where to
Yeah.
find it. And digital webbing was a great help,
Oh
right?
yeah, I love digital webbing.
Right.
Yep, I
Yeah,
remember.
exactly. Yeah, Ed ran a great site that was super helpful for.
Yeah, that was where I first connected with Ryan
Yep.
Otley way
Yep.
back before he, before he broke in or
Yeah. Yeah.
anything. There was a ton of
Oh
talent
heck
on
yeah,
there
yeah.
back in the
Back
day.
then, yeah, we were talking about 1010, but digital webbing had Carrie Nord, Mahmoud Asrar, Yildiray. I'm sure I'm
Yep.
forgetting a ton of people, but a ton of
Oh
people were
yeah.
over there too, over at DW. So yeah, that's how it looked like back then, right? What's it look like now?
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, right?
Yep.
Like now it's like how many followers you got, right? Like that's kind of, and I
Yeah.
don't think that's it's like hiring the kid who got straight A's, right? It doesn't mean that she can do the job. It's just like one other indicator that there's
Yeah.
something you just don't get A's, right? So the same
Yep.
thing with followers. I don't think it's a like race, right? It's not a follow, but it does
No,
suggest um, an ability to market, right? And I think
for
that's I
sure.
think that's kind of critical these days because right they want someone who can bring in their own readers and their own followers, right? So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So yeah, how would you do it? How would you do it
So
these days? The exact method and how you do it changes, but I think the keeping the relationship in the forefront probably stays the same, right?
yeah. So you had your face was being recognized by these people seeing you at all these cons, and you were able to kind of get on
Yeah.
CB and I think you said Stephanie's radar, and so at that point, did they give you like a sample script or any follow up stuff they wanted you to do to see if they were gonna get you in and give you some professional work with Marvel?
So how it happened was I was lucky enough to have a day job, right? So you really it takes time, right? And one of the best portfolio
Yeah,
reviews did that first year was actually with I believe it was with Ron Martz, and you do a few of these, and people are like, yeah, you work on this, work on that, but his really stuck out also, and he said like, you know what, you're X number of years away. It's like that's freaking helpful.
wow,
Thank you, and it actually
yeah,
turned out to be those number of years, right? So
okay.
so if you ever get a portfolio review, ever seek out Ron, and he'll give you no
There you
pressure,
go.
Ron. But yeah, so after that first meeting with Marvel, several months later, CB and Chris Allo, who was another talent person back then, they sent me sample script, Moon Knight. And then it wasn't like another year after that. So it was like a year in between these steps. It felt like, but I don't think I was
Yeah,
that off. Because it's not like there's a job always available, right? Like a lot of these projects get booked up well in advance, right? So yeah, it was
yeah.
probably like 2 years after that first thing. Then I got it was like what if Spider-Man the Other, the world's longest freaking title for my first published work. It was Peter
Yeah,
David. Um, and Mark Brooks on cover, right? So that was number one, and then
I
from there
think
went to
I think I have that one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have that
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. That was
I went through a phase where I was like finding all your first work and everything. So I think I probably have that somewhere in my
yeah,
collection.
yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. Like you go through phases, right? I see the art easel behind you, where it's like you draw something, it looks
Yes.
nice. Years later, it's like, oh, this is crap. But then years after that, it's like, you know what? I actually kind of did have something there, right?
Yeah. I do that, but it's like every few
Oh yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
oh man, I could draw that so much better
yeah, yeah,
today than I did 3 days
yeah.
ago.
That's probably more realistic.
Yeah.
So the shorter the time since you drew it, but then you
Yeah.
give it a full, 5 years later, then it's like, okay, you know what? I should bring some of that back, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
so that was that. Andy Schmidt was a great help there. Did Marvel Comics Presents, then X Factor, and then just went and went and went. And
Now, did you do any longer runs on books that you can recall? Because a lot of artists I've had on recently, we've talked about the fact that you really don't see people on runs of books anymore, meaning like doing several issues in a row. Like that seems to be becoming less and less common. Do you recall being on any book for an extended period of time that you got to be able to really kind of find your voice and get into the groove with the characters? Because it can be hard just jumping from book to book to book. Like you can see with most artists, like if they're on a book for a while, like how they draw certain characters, how they embody the character, and everything develops over time. Did you find that you ever got to really do that on a book?
Well, it depends how you define a run, right? Is a run like 4 or more, 6 or more?
Yeah, I would say, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I was
I mean, we're not everybody's Jack
yeah,
Kirby. They're not
right,
going to do
right,
like 110 issues or
right. It's not the
something.
80s anymore, right? But yes, but
Exactly.
I've been fortunate. So X Factor was a run, Mighty Avengers was a run from Bendis and across coming over to Dan Slott. I remember I got in trouble from Marvel because I spoiled the news on one's like a news group. I didn't know how that worked. So Jim
Yeah.
McCann sent me a who I'm friends with. Is an angry email like we have a whole process for how we
Yeah.
make these announcements. But yeah. So anyway, so that
Whoops.
was a run. I think before that, Hercules with Greg Pak and Fred Van Lente was a run.
Yeah.
Teen Titans, Scarlet Spider, X Men. So normally I've been lucky that most of my projects that I do take are for runs, not isolated things.
Now, one thing I noticed there is there's a lot of team books in there.
Yeah,
And a lot of people get scared of drawing team books, like having to
yeah.
draw all the different characters and stuff. Do you find that daunting at all, or do you enjoy that challenge?
I really like number one, and I do this a little bit in jest, but it's mostly true. I'd rather draw people than backgrounds. Right? So,
Right.
so, but it depends, right? It's not always the
Yeah.
case, but yeah, I like. I didn't know this, right? I'm married to a therapist, and Heather's great, so she's been really helping me out with a lot of
Okay.
this stuff. Which
Yeah,
is
I
why,
bet.
and so we're doing the mentoring together with Matt Yoakum, who's written a few things for Marvel, but but yeah, there's so much to learn in terms of like who I am, who I wasn't. So
Right.
understanding myself more now, I think I've always gravitated towards relationships because I'm probably not the best at it, probably for a lot of reasons, maybe being an immigrant, different experience, stuff like that. So
Right.
so I kind of been always fascinated by interaction. So I think the team books like X-Men, they really,
Hmm.
you know, I can see why I was drawn to those and then how I ended up drawing those things because to me it's
Yeah.
like those interactions just like those are important to me. I didn't know, but so that's kind of what I enjoy, and I
Makes
try to
sense
do
a
that.
little bit on a
Yeah,
deeper
yeah, not
deeper level.
exactly, not just with work, just everything. Like I really, I think I enjoy people, right? I think I enjoy that side of
Yeah.
all of this.
Now, I think that's a good transition into talking a bit about getting into this mentorship and mentoring people and helping. I'm assuming you're helping a lot of up and coming artists, or at least that's the goal, like kind of giving them a little bit of direction. So, what do you find is kind of the most challenging part of that, and also on the flip side, the most rewarding part of that?
So so when it comes to the mentor, what the reason, there's a lot of reasons why I I I, I do it, why I enjoy doing it, why I think more people should do it. Is because James, like the people in this business, when I started, like Michael Lark would come up and encourage me, right? Like all these
Hmm.
names would just be like super encouraging and sharing, and I think
Yeah.
that's awesome, right? Like that's just amazed me. So this trying to like pay it forward is a big component of it.
Hmm.
Um, Heather's really helped me kind of appreciate more about what gets in the way of artists. So it's a story I tell all the time. I'm sure I haven't said on your podcast, but I've had said on every other one.
There
Was
you go.
when I was doing Mighty Avengers with Bendis, right? This is like most people would consider it. That's a pretty good spot to be. I was miserable. I hated my art. I would just go online and find the hate posts and it's
Mm,
like I was killing myself. The imposter syndrome, all this stuff that comes and
yeah,
genuine um, quality issues, right? I mean, whether it's like self fulfilling or it's a realistic assessment, but just handling it all wrong, right? Like I was in that
yeah,
spot, so with Heather's help, I was able to kind of work through. Like it wasn't like I get in my own way, right? So a lot of the stuff is mental. A lot of stuff is you set limits on yourself. The imposter syndrome is a huge one, right?
yeah.
A lack of
Especially being on a big title
oh
like
yeah,
that, working with such a big name writer,
oh
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Like you'd be surprised. When I get on a call with somebody early on, I'll say, what's your wildest dream? What does your success look like for you, right? And it's just kind of like I just want to be able to be comfortable. I want to be able to publish
Mm.
one book. It's like, dude, what about 8 Ferraris? Right? What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So it's like this mindset where we just it's like I set no rules. There were no parameters. Anything you
yeah.
want. And even clarifying people to keep hedging. Well, okay, maybe if I did this, like this is like like
Yeah. Set what they call that, like a
yes,
self-limiting belief,
absolutely.
right? Like their goal is not lofty enough.
It,
They're putting limitations on themselves subconsciously, whether they realize it or
yeah,
not.
and it's so much to unpack, right? So what I like to do with the mentoring, which is different than therapy, I'm not a therapist, right? Is kind of like yes, there's an element of how to, right? So as comic artists, I think artists in general, but I'll just speak to what I know here is that technique wise, I think comic artists are at the top, right? Aspiring comic artists included. Like
For
our
sure.
ability to draw anything and our
Yeah.
eagerness to draw everything and tackle everything. Other artists, quote unquote, like I listen to podcasts and hear them talk. They don't love the sketching part, right? Like say like a
Yeah.
lot of sculptors would be like, I want to get to the sculpting. Painters, I want to get to the painting, but the actual layout and the drawing, ugh, like I dread that. It's like
Yeah.
we love that. Like that's what we're
Yeah, that's
about,
my favorite
right?
part. Yeah, my wife gives me a hard time because so many rough sketches and not as many finished drawings as I'm doing rough
Right,
sketches, you
right. Well,
know?
so there you go. So there's a lot of things that that if so if we were working at a regular company, regular, right, typical whatever society has told us is regular, whether it's truly regular or not, I don't
Yeah.
know. But you get a boss, you get a middle boss, you get a trainer, you get coworkers, you get like the structure is like you get indoctrinated, right? This is how it's done.
Yeah.
You get rewarded for this, you get punished for that. We're gonna be on top of you and watch everything you do, like it or not. That gets you to deliver, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Freelancers, comics, or anything, there's no guidance. There's no boss. You have a client. That's not your boss. Your
Yep.
clients aren't there to train you. They pay you to do a job. All right. So we don't
Yeah.
have that training like a system, right? We don't have accountability. If you had a job and you didn't show up for your work, your coworker would be like, bro, like what's happening? Get to work. What are you doing? Right? Or you're late for something. People will be on you to make you accountable,
Yes.
right? So I think a lot of times, again, I've done it, right? We confuse our clients with employers, people who are invested in holding you accountable because they have invested in it money,
Yeah.
right? So we don't have that. If you work for Marvel, they are not going to hold you accountable. DC will not. They will just move on, right?
Yeah,
That's how it goes.
exactly. Especially
Oh,
nowadays, right? Like
absolutely.
we're talking about how many amazing, like they could just go to Instagram and find 1,000 different people who are amazing nowadays.
Absolutely, right? So we have to have that so a lot of a lot of what ends up happening are people will say, "Hey, that's mentoring. That's great. Can you help me how to do perspective? Can you help me do that?" And it's like, that's cool, but I'll tell you what. Most of it is going to be mental. Most of it is going to be how can we work on you developing the discipline so that you
Right.
can work on perspective, right? I can teach
Yeah.
you all this stuff, but I can't make you do it. It's like the lead the horse to water
Yep.
thing, right? I can teach you exactly how this is
Exactly.
done. All right. After we have a conversation about who your audience is, we have a conversation about how different approaches to take because there's multiple ways to tell the one story depending on who your audience is. Right? I could tell you all that stuff. You can figure it out. Right? As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
you probably don't need me for that. You just need me to ask 5 questions and you'll get there. But what you might need someone for is that accountability and discipline. How can we instill and maintain and foster that discipline? And that is where it gets really, really difficult for, I would say, almost all of us. Right. So as you were describing,
For
right,
sure.
those sketches that don't get done, that your wife's like, hey, finish these sketches. It takes,
Yeah.
it's not physical discipline, right? You do the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? I'm not talking
Yes.
physical
Yes.
discipline. You put us in front of a
Nope.
table and a pencil, we will draw for 12 hours straight. Don't eat, don't
Exactly.
do nothing. We will draw. I'm not talking about that physical discipline, right? I'm talking about that mental discipline to make sure that what you're drawing actually makes damn sense. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think that's something very unique, and I really like hearing that you're taking that approach with this because I preach a lot of this with jujitsu, all the same things you're saying about, unlocking that limiting belief and everything that people have, or a lack of belief they have in themselves, and being able to let them see. I always tell people if you could see yourself the way I see you,
Yeah.
like there's nothing you couldn't do, but they have to be able to see it within themselves first. And part of our job as a coach or a mentor is being able to help them find tools to unlock those things. So it sounds like that's what you're doing with this mentorship program, which to me seems pretty unique from a lot of the other art mentorship things that I've heard about. So that's
Yeah.
really
Well,
cool.
it helps being married to a therapist who's part of the program, right? And Matt Yoakum is
Yeah.
retired Air Force colonel. So talk about discipline, right? So
Yeah.
so just the people I'm with, like that's just the world I'm in, right? So it's like we want to bring that
Yeah.
to people.
I think somebody I just had on recently is also friends with Matt, gentleman named Seta
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uzjin.
yeah, yeah. I'm good friends with
Yeah,
yeah.
he was talking about Matt too when he was on here, so that's really cool to hear
See,
that
I
connection.
love this.
6 degrees of
No,
separation,
no, but
right?
the industry is small enough where you don't even need to get to six, right? You get out there, you
Yeah,
make it a point to to contribute to somebody's life. I'm not saying get out there and just like, hey, I'll get messages. Hey, can you critique like out of the blue, right? I don't know who
yeah,
you are. Hey, can you look at my stuff? Like, why? Like, why would I do that?
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
like immediately I feel used, right? Now, I might,
yep,
depending on the day, and I'll give it some thought, like this person, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not what I'm talking about. I know you know this, but I'm just talking generally in terms of like
yep,
how connecting with people. It's not like what can I get from you. It's like what can I do for you? That's the
yeah.
approach, right?
Well, unfortunately, we kind of live in a "what have you done for me lately" instant gratification society. So a lot of people, they almost feel owed that critique that they randomly
Yeah,
ask a professional, with years and years of knowledge and skill. Like they feel that you owe that to them for
yeah.
some
I'm
reason.
not smart enough to figure that out in terms of like because to me it's like
Yeah,
with social media and the ease of broadcasting what's in your freaking head is just
yeah,
insanely disproportionate to what I'm used to. Right? Is
correct.
it the occurrence of this behavior is more, or is it just louder? Or you know what I mean? Or not
Right.
the occurrence of the occurrence is definitely higher, but in terms of like the number of people who are this way. All right.
Yeah.
So back in the day,
It's probably just the law of averages.
something.
They have more access to you
Yes.
than they would have back in
Right.
the day too. Like they would have had to, fly out to a con, pay to go to a con to get that kind of interaction. And now it's very impersonal and they can just shoot a message over and you know what? Maybe they shoot 20 of those out and five people give them
Sure.
critiques for free and
Absolutely.
who
And who
knows,
knows
right?
about who they are, maybe, but again, what I try to do also is like to give it some perspective. So certain
Yeah.
interactions stand out, and I don't want those to weigh heavier than they really weigh. So out of
Yeah.
every one of those, it doesn't bother me. I just find it interesting. There's like countless other fantastically positive interactions, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if it's what it is. It's just something I observe, right? But in terms of
Yeah.
like, yeah. So that's it's about getting out there and connecting and like how Sadat and how like
Yeah.
that's awesome. This is like this is a lesson in how to get into comics, right? Me knowing you
Yeah.
knowing other people, and just genuinely trying to help each other out and being a part of the community, right? Because part of when we were in
Yeah.
Tenton and digital webbing, you remember back in the day, right? You got people who would
Oh yeah.
just say, "Hey, great art, right? Look, I love what you're doing. Keep it up." And for people looking for critique, say, "Hey, can I like this, but you might want to work on that." Those people are part of the community. Then you got the ones, I don't care how great they are, they'll come in and drop,
Mhm.
here's 5 of my pictures, you know, what is it? Just love it. Right? Tell me how much you love it. It's like
Yeah.
crickets, right?
Yep.
That's not how it goes. And the same thing with all these other things like the
Exactly.
whatnots and all these different seller platforms stuff. You're not going to sell squat if you just come up there and drop your Picasso down there expecting people to honor it and love it. It's not going
Yeah.
to happen. It really, you got to be a part of the community.
Yeah, there has to be that connection there. People can pick up on that genuine sense of connection and community
Absolutely.
is definitely of great importance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kickstarter, same thing, all of that.
Now, going back to Nerdcrawler, kind of the most recent stuff I've seen from you is a lot of the pieces you've been putting on there. But as far as comic work, what are some things, what are some projects, obviously, that you can talk about that you've been working on here recently?
So so I've actually been working on 2 creator books, with one with Matt, all right, and one with another
Nice.
writer. His name's Lucas Lohman, all right, and we're just shopping for publishers because it's part of the whole. Well, I kind of want to see how all of it works, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I'll do. I do covers for Marvel, and I still do that stuff to, again, relationships, to maintain all that stuff.
Yes.
Um, but I think it's fun just trying to like experience other parts of it too. So the one with Matt's called Absolved. We're talking to some people there. It's that one's actually like I drew it. It's done. 8 issues are done. Made I drew it.
Oh
Chris
wow.
Sotomayor colored it. Ed Dukeshire, speaking of digital webbing, lettered
Oh
it.
wow. Ed's still around doing his
Well,
thing.
he's a letterer, award winning, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember he was doing
Yeah,
lettering.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's an accomplished letterer. That's hard to say, but yeah, he's doing that. So that's done. It's a fun sci-fi assassin battle royale, like love note to action and movies and TV shows. It's a real trip. So hopefully that finds a home soon. The thing I'm doing with Matt is I don't know if we're a little we're shopping. I don't know. I have to talk to Matt in terms of how much I'm able to talk about it. But
Right,
but
right.
that's a different kind of aspect to it. So yeah,
So we got some stuff to look forward to, some creator-owned stuff
yeah, and
from
some
you.
other stuff that I can't talk about yet.
Nice. Well, to wrap things up, I would like to give you the opportunity to tell people how they can get into this mentorship program that you offer, like how to best connect with you, where to find you online, all these different things in this world that we live in, where we can connect instantly via a few taps on our phone screen.
Well, the easiest way right now, because we're we're doing an enrollment period coming up soon, so we're kind of like
Okay,
revamping some things. So for now, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Those are probably the two best, as the websites are
perfect.
getting updated.
Now, is your Instagram, is that at Khoi Pham Art or just
I think
at
it's at
Khoi
Khoi Pham
Pham?
Art. Yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes and the descriptions for everybody so they can get a hold of you. And I'll probably be getting a hold of you for that mentorship program too, because I really enjoy um, evolving my art. And it sounds like you're taking a unique approach with it. So
Yeah.
I mean, get in my head a little bit and unlock some of these abilities, get me finishing some pieces
Yeah.
to appease my wife.
Right. Yeah, we're doing something different. We're doing a more intentional group mentoring this round.
Oh,
So
cool.
that should be a lot of
Nice.
fun in terms of like
Very cool.
having that support system.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here with me today. I know I reached out to you quite some time ago. You were amongst my list of first people I reached out to. So I'm glad to see this come to fruition, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for taking your time out of your busy day. I know you've had a busy week, and it's kind of the life of a artist, it seems.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to finally able to make. We had some technical stuff leading into it, but
Yeah, we
we,
did.
we took care of it and
We got it.
we made it happen.
We got it handled
Yep.
though.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, for everybody who's listening, you guys make sure you head over to YouTube. It's youtube.com/ at Nerdy Mewzings. Musings is spelled Mewzings. You can check out the video version of the podcast there. Audio version is on all major audio podcast platforms. Apple is kind of the biggest one. If you want to give us a like or a review if you're enjoying the podcast. That helps greatly with getting it seen. In the meantime, everybody, keep it nerdy. Mr. Khoi, hang out with me for a moment. I'm going to hit this outro, my friend. You take
All right.
care.
Thanks. See you, everybody.